So we are going to shift to, are you recording me already? Oh. So we are going to shift now to applying to grad school 101. As I mentioned earlier, this will have a lot of details, logistics and whatnot, but also some philosophical stuff. So we will go through who, what, where, when, and how of applying to graduate school. Okay, you will get a copy of this Prezi, but I do suggest that you kind of like keep notes as we're kind of going through. Okay. Who? So who are you? Why is this relevant? Why does anyone think this might be relevant to grad school? Isn't it all the same process for everybody?
Your letter of intent should be reflective of who you are and your purpose.
Yes, exactly. So really, it's important to think about who you are and what your story is and how you will distinguish yourself from other applicants. Maybe dim it a little bit, but not too much because I'm full for it. So yeah, it is important to think about who you are because it's going to determine what you're able to write, but also why are you even pursuing this career in the first place, right? So I know you all were given a prompt at orientation to talk about your identities, right? We didn't really get to debrief that thoroughly, but be thinking about who you listed as your top identities, right? For me, it's being a Panay, being a wife, being a public health professional, right? Those are my identities. Sorry, educator as well. When I wrote my statement of purpose, I actually included that as part of my intro. I am a second generation Filipino American. I am an educator. I am a public health professional. And all of these things influence why I care about educational opportunities for students of color. So, who were you? He who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to his destination. This is a quote from Dr. Jose Rizal, national hero of the Philippines. So think about how has your past shaped who you have become? What experiences motivated you and what identities do you hold? So take a minute right now to kind of jot down in whatever notebook you have in front of you. Who were you? What has kind of gotten you to this point here? You didn't just wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna go to grad school. I don't think people really do that. So take this time to think about what has motivated you. And again, just take a minute. You're not gonna write your whole statement of purpose right now, but maybe draw something, bullet point something. Maybe there's a sentence that you wanna expand on later. And again, maybe reflect on the Who Am I activity that you just did earlier this week. Maybe take 15 more seconds to wrap up that thought. And again, this isn't going to be fully fleshed, but I want you to at least have something in your mind as we're going through the lesson. Okay. All right, so you don't have to share this with us, not yet. Maybe after it turns into a statement of purpose, but really think about what you've been through to get you to this point in your life that you're interested in graduate school. Okay. Now, who do you want to be? This is not, I want to be a social worker, I want to be a speech therapist, right? I want you to think about what kind of impact do you want to have, right? So turn next to your partner and Caroline, I don't know, maybe, yeah, I think, did I do stuff up? Perfect, come on in. So maybe the 3 and then the 2 of you? Yeah. So Andrew, you be here. The 3 of you can chat, the 2 of you. Right. So again, not just like, oh, I want to be a speech therapist, but I want to provide bilingual services in Spanish to my community, right? That's the impact, right? It's not, this is the job that I want. This is the change that I want to see in my community by me becoming this profession. That makes sense. So go ahead. Talk for like a minute. 2 minutes. Let's give you 2 minutes. Yeah.
And for I guess my ability to speak another language, I want to, I want to use that as go in a broader sense, for my community, not just here locally, but especially since I went back to my country recently, abroad, they have things that they deal with that we don't have to deal with. They have, for a while, they might in my country, they didn't have toilets, and now it's becoming the reality for a lot of people. And now it's more, I guess, education, like health education that they don't have access to, and I would like to have that opportunity to not only do it here, but to do it internationally for my people, because things that I have here, they don't have. And I would love to develop that. And I'm sure that's the same case for whatever country other immigrants are. Yeah, but I feel like public health is so much that you can do.
When I see like people there, I don't have that.
We have the opportunity that you with just school here. So I guess.
Someone like that is like in my profession. I feel like that's
All right. Maybe take 5 more seconds to wrap up. Did everyone get to share? So, does anyone want to share either what they said or maybe something cool that their partner said? No, nobody really wants to make an impact. Sorry.
I found it really interesting that she's very geared towards giving back to older communities and making sure that all races, all cultural backgrounds are feeling included and welcomed into all types of community facilities, I should say. So that inclusivity, I thought that was very admirable, and especially caring for the older generation.
Yeah, definitely older adults are a frequently forgotten population, but I think there's been a lot more attention recently being paid attention to the field of gerontology and how we can make this world more inclusive and not forget our elders. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Maybe one more person. One more person. Maybe from this side.
I'll share. Lillian was talking about just wanting to be someone to provide resources, for the underserved population where maybe a lot of people may feel helpless and they don't know where to start. She just wants to be able to do that bridge to connect and give people more hope.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Really think about the impact that you want to make and how, you're not just going to be another social worker, but you being a social worker means more resources for your community, right? Trying to clarify that there are different ways that you can be that profession. Cool. Thank you. So now, kind of on that topic. So I know I kind of was like, I don't like when people say they want to help because it's kind of too generic, right? There are different ways to help people. And this is one of the things that bothers me when people say, oh, I want to be a nurse because I like to help. But there are so many different ways to help, right? So how do you want to help people, right? And so kind of thinking through this, like what field aligns most with the lens that you want to use and the tools that you want to use, right? Thinking about therapy, right, or psychotherapy, right, you could either come from it from a counseling perspective or from a social work perspective, right, focused on the individual or kind of looking at society, right? So like what lens are you going to use to address these health issues, and also what tools do you want to use, right? A PT and an OT might be working on the same patient. With an SLP, right, occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech language pathologist, they're all working with the same client who just had the same health issue, accident, or whatever it is, but what tools do you want to use to rehabilitate them, right? So, as you know, in Allied Health Academy, these are the 4 that we are focused on this grant: communicative disorders, physical therapy, public health, and social work. We have in the past also focused on occupational therapy and counseling, so we do have some of those resources, but these are the specific programs that we have graduate partners with right now. I do encourage you to take Health Science 202 if you haven't already. I don't know if any of you enrolled in it this semester. Yeah. Hopefully take that if you can, particularly for those of you who are still trying to figure out what are you going to be doing. So Health Science 202 is the full length, the full title is Exploration of Health and Allied Health Professions. This is a 3-unit class where you learn about different career paths, create your own career action plan, get graduate school guidance, meet professionals through guest speakers and assignments, and then know why changing demographics demand workers like you. So like the aging situation, increased diversity and whatnot, right? There's a need for more folks in the health industry. These are also some different resources that are available. So the Career Center, I would strongly encourage you to drop by and visit them. I'll have other resources from them later. The Health Professions Advising Office, as mentioned earlier. The Allied Health Student Association. So this is a student club that branched off from the Allied Health Academy. And so they're a great way to learn more about the different fields that are out there. And then also explorehealthcareers.org. This is a great website that breaks down a lot of different health careers. So if you feel curious about any of these careers that we're going over, or maybe these don't really fit, these don't really jive with you, check out that website, find out more. All right, so that's the who, the what, the where. So where will you actually apply? I strongly encourage you to do your research. Not just like, okay, well, I already go to Cal State Fullerton, so I'm gonna go to Cal State Fullerton, right? Maybe, but I encourage you to kind of think broadly. Do your research online, attend information sessions and campus tours, and reach out to faculty, staff, students, and alumni. So we'll go through some different considerations when you're thinking about where to apply. Wherever you go, make sure that it's an accredited program. So you'll get this, Prezi, and you can click on the links. These are accredited, these are directories of accredited programs. What that means is that your degree means something to the field. If you go to a place that is not yet accredited or is not accredited, you might have a harder time finding a job. You might not be learning everything that the field as a whole agrees to, okay? So I think it's pretty straightforward once you go to each of these websites how to kind of navigate it. But I do want to point out, because public health is so broad, the ASPPH website allows you to kind of break it down into biostatistics or environmental health or what. Program traits. So thinking about the program itself, right? Do they specialize in your area of interest, right? So just because it's a master's of public health, do they have what you're specifically focused on, right? We do not have an epidemiology program here, right? So if you're interested in epi, this may not be the best path for you. UC Irvine does, so maybe check that out. Think about the faculty that are there. Is there a faculty member who does research with immigrant communities, if that's something that you're interested in? If nobody really does that, is that really the best place for you? Coursework, what kind of classes do they offer? I was just going through this with one of our students who applied this cycle. She noticed that one of the schools she was applying to, it's a public health program, has a bunch of classes on mental health. Mental health isn't always mentioned in public health. So to have a public health program that has specific classes about mental health, it really demonstrates a fit with her, right? So again, this is why it's important to know who you are and what you're interested, what impact you want to make in order to figure out whether you're a good fit for that program. And centers. Here on campus, there is a Center for Successful Aging, right? We have the Ruby Gerontology Center right next to us. So if you are interested in gerontology, maybe you should consider Cal State Fullerton because of their access to different centers, right? So it's not just, do they have my degree, let me apply, but how does that program kind of fit in with your specific interest, okay? And then how is the curriculum structured? Does everybody take the exact same classes, or can you take some electives to specialize even further? Or can you take a certificate, right? So look into these and think about how can this specific program help you reach your career goals. Are there opportunities for hands-on learning? How many hours do they require in the field placement, right? With most social work programs, all year for both years, right? With the MPH program here, it's what, 240 hours?
Yes.
It's 240 hours. I think ours was 400 hours at UCLA, right? So each program is gonna vary. So take a look at that. Are there research opportunities for students? This is one of the things that someone else pointed out, the difference between a UC and a CSU. At a UC, there are doctoral students there. So the master's students, like myself when I was over there, may not really get as many research opportunities as the doctoral students. But here at a Cal State, where the grad students are primarily master's level, right? When you're an MPH student here, you may get more opportunities, right? Because you're like the top dogs, right? There's no PhD in public health here. Okay, so maybe think about that as well. And what kind of academic, social, and professional support is offered to students? For me at UCLA, there was a student organization called Students of Color for Public Health. And so that was an opportunity for us to work on, well, first of all, to find other folks who had similar backgrounds as us, but also to organize so that we could work on certain issues in the community that we were passionate about. And then lastly, like, what else is important to you, right? These are just some things that I mentioned that I'm familiar with, but maybe there's something else that's specific to you. And then think about the school itself. In-state, out-of-state, what does that mean for tuition? Local, right? Maybe you do need to go to Cal State Fullerton because it's close to your house. And you don't have other forms of transportation, or maybe you need to stay home because your family depends on you, right? Think about those different aspects. Are you looking for a rural neighborhood, urban, small town, college vibe? Are you okay with the weather, right? If you go to the East Coast or like Michigan or something like that, can you deal with the snow? Even San Francisco, right? My husband went to San Francisco State for his master's in Asian Am, and like, it's super foggy there and it can be really sad, right? So think about these other factors that could influence if you want to get out of bed in the day, right? During in the day, yeah. Large university or small, Cal State Fullerton is large, but maybe you feel like you kind of get that small vibe because of the cohort experience. Or maybe you actually go to a small school that only has like 2,000 people, period, right? You might get a different experience. Also, depending if it's private or public, the resources that are available. And don't think, oh, just because it's private, you won't be able to go, right? There's different funding available, whether there's scholarships, fellowships, loans, right? There are different ways to make it happen. Diversity. What programs does the school have itself as far as support for low-income students, first-generation students, students of color? Some places like here, as you heard Luis mention earlier, they have the SOAR grant. There are specific scholarships and mentorship opportunities for students like yourselves. And the resources for graduate students, right? Is there a graduate student center at that campus? Are graduate students the majority of the students that are at that campus? If so, they might have a lot more opportunities. And then cost, how affordable is it? Is funding available? So I would say it's important to talk to the admissions people to find out what kind of funding is available. Don't cut yourself short by just not applying, even if it is a private school. You never know. So these are some of our specific linkage partners for each of our programs for HCOP 2. So the Calm Disorders program here at Cal State Fullerton, the physical therapy doctorate at Western University, public health, we have both Cal State Fullerton and UCI. Social work, the most robust, we have Fullerton, Long Beach, and Cal State LA. Not all of these programs, but most of them, we do have a few of their brochures on our resource table, so feel free to grab that. And we do have some materials from Calm Disorders now that weren't there this morning. Okay, that was who, what, where, when. This one's kind of short. It's not the right time, right? Some questions to ask yourself. Am I ready now? Have I completed the prerequisites? Is it required that I need experience, right? For some programs like OT, PT, you need a certain number of hours, right? I don't think people really think about this one. Can I do what I want to do without it? When you graduate with your bachelor's, will you be able to do what you really want to do? If yes, then okay, maybe work first. If you know that to fully practice, you need that master's degree, then you keep going, right? Can I afford it now? What else do you have on your plate? Do you have a car payment that you need to pay off before you go back to school? Do you have a wedding that's coming up, right? What other things are going on? And then also, when are the deadlines? I believe most, if not all of our linkage partners' deadlines have passed or are about to pass. Yeah. MPH is like the end of this month, which is what, next week? So it may not be realistic, even though you feel like, you know what, I feel confident, I'm gonna apply. Well, you only have a week left. Probably need more time than that. Even if you could pull everything together yourself, as you heard earlier, the letters of recommendation take time. So make sure you factor that in when you are figuring out your timeline to apply. All right, so that was who, what, where, when, how. I think this is probably what most people are thinking about when they're thinking about grad school. Feel free to stop me to ask questions, particularly here because there's a lot of information. So we'll go over the typical parts of the grad school application and then some resources, get more information. So there's the academic piece, the experience piece, the statement of purpose, letters of recommendation, and then the application itself. So academics, this encompasses a variety of things. So bachelor's degree, some programs require you to actually be done already by the time you apply. Others, as long as you complete it before you enroll, so double check with the program. Some programs require specific degrees like Calm Disorders, or else you will need to complete a post-bac program. Others just need certain prereqs completed, like PT, you can technically go in with whatever major, but you need to have a certain number of, a certain set of classes completed. And some are open to students with a variety of backgrounds, like social work, public health. I think OT is kind of in between the two, where you do need to get prerequisites, but you could come in with so many different lenses. So GPA, so check what the minimum GPA just to be eligible to apply. This is frequently at least a 3.0. Programs are very competitive and will typically accept students with even higher GPAs. So check the website for the average GPA ranges for accepted students. I will say that one of our students last year was below the range posted on a website. And so we tried to have a conversation with her, like, you know, just be realistic that you fall out of this range, so your chances of getting in are not high, but she got in, right? So it doesn't mean that you're not gonna get in, but they just tend to get folks with a higher GPAs. And for Calm Disorders here, they frequently push 3.7 GPAs or higher. So keep that in mind, keep that in mind, keep that in mind. It doesn't mean you can't get in elsewhere, right? One of our comm disorder students, she applied like multiple cycles and then she eventually got in, not here, but somewhere else, right? So it's just a matter of knowing how competitive you are based off of things that they check, like GPA. And then also clarify what GPA do they even care about. Is it the overall GPA, so Cal Fullerton with any transfer courses, the prerequisite GPAs, right? So as I mentioned before, like what prerequisite classes do they require and what are your GPAs there? And then with some of them, there's also, they also check the last 60 semester units, right? So it can vary, just double check what they are asking for. Okay. Transcripts. So in addition to that GPA, they want the backup documentation, transcripts. So check whether they need official ones that you will have to order, or if they can accept unofficial ones until you are admitted. So this includes community colleges that you might have transferred from, as well as if you just took a summer course there. So even if you didn't get a degree, if you took a class there to complete some kind of degree requirement here, you're gonna need to submit that. And some programs may require a specific document to attach. So SOFAs for public health, they want you to attach the document so they can keep track of it on their end. Just watch out for that. Some applications, yes, they want you to submit the transcript, but they also want you to manually input it into their website. Tons of fun, not really, but just know that you may have to do that depending on the application. And so that does take time, so do not wait until the last minute. Admissions and records here may take up to 10 business days. Just factor that in as you are planning. And the link to order that is right there. All right, GRE. So this is basically required for every program except for several social work and counseling programs. But everything else, basically, GRE is the typical grad school readiness exam. So this covers verbal, quant, analytical writing. Through us, you can take a free online prep course through Kaplan. Some programs have a minimum writing score. So for example, Western U's DPT, 3.5 writing. So that's very important. If you don't have some of these minimums, then they might not even look at you, right? I believe OT Dominguez Hills is like a 4 on writing, right? So you need to just do your research and know what each program requires. Other programs, they just want you to take it. They don't really care what you get. They just want you to take it. It does take it does cost $205 to take the exam. You should be eligible for a fee reduction if you qualify for financial aid generally. That's good enough, but go through the website to find that out. Some students end up retaking it to improve their scores. We hope that is not you, but it does happen to our students as well. But also know that scores last for 5 years. So even if you think, okay, well, I want to work for a year first after I graduate, you might as well take the class now. No, take the test now to get it over with, so you don't have to worry about studying for the GRE while working and applying. That's what I did. You can send up to 4 scores for free the day of the exam, and any additional scores, sorry, any additional scores would be $27 each. So make sure you get the right 4-digit code for the institution. I don't think anyone's ready to send their scores yet, but just come back to this slide when you're ready. All right. Oops, experience. So update your resume with education, employment, volunteer, research, leadership, awards, and more. It's better to err on the side of putting too much rather than not enough. There was a student who we were reviewing. She didn't include she didn't include her service fraternity because she was like, that's not really health related. Include it all because it shows that you're involved on campus. It demonstrates leadership, right? And I do encourage everyone to get your resume reviewed by the Career Center. They do have this thing now called VMOC. It sucks, don't use it, because they can't provide you that insight that a person can, as far as like, oh, you know what, you could phrase this a better way, or I noticed that this is missing, right? So think about that. Hours, so as I mentioned before, some programs require a certain number of hours. For example, Western Youth DPT requires a minimum of 100 hours of volunteer or paid work experience in 2 or more physical therapy facilities. And the reason why they want those different facilities is so you can demonstrate that you have been exposed to different work settings, right? Similarly, for common disorders, if you can have a school site versus a clinic, right, being able to demonstrate how well-rounded you are. All right, statement of purpose. So this is an essay that's also known as a personal statement, letter of intent. I won't go through this too much because we have a whole workshop just on writing your statement of purpose. But this is really your opportunity to talk about why you are pursuing graduate school. This is not a rehashing of your resume. That's not what this is about. This is where you talk about who you are and what impact you want to make, okay? This is your opportunity to talk about why you deserve a spot in their program. Out of like 600 applicants, they need to give you that spot, right? That sounds super intimidating, but if you don't convey it in that letter, it's not likely for you to get that spot, okay? And I do enjoy like going through this with students because I think a lot of people have stories, they're just waiting to be told. Okay. All right. And then letters of recommendation. So we kind of talked about this a little bit already. Professors are professionals who can talk about your readiness for graduate school, 2 to 3 depending on the program. So get people who can provide different perspectives of who you are. You don't want them all from your same like department, right? You want to have some variety. They should be able to talk about your academic ability. So I mentioned this, a professor, not lecturer. It sounds like the programs here mentioned that they didn't really mind, but I know a previous professor was kind of like, adjunct isn't as strong. So I guess it depends on the field. And then also someone who can talk about your clinical or community work. So as I mentioned before, someone who really knows you, because a generic letter is not going to help, and build your relationship now. Hopefully you got that message today. So I did business administration for my undergrad. I did not do anything health related. How did I get into grad school? Well, I got a letter, not saying that this is the only way I got it, but these are the letters that I used. I had my ethics studies professor who could talk about how involved I was in college and afterwards with the Filipino community. It showed that I understood the community. My computer information systems senior project advisor who was able to talk about how strong of a student I was. And my supervisor at my current job who did have an MPH. So she could say, this is how Erin is professionally in a public health setting, right? So those are all 3 very different perspectives, but when you put them together, they kind of like form this puzzle of who you are, okay? You do not want all 3 letters coming from the same type of person. All right, the application itself. So the school application, either online or hard copy form. So this can include personal information, typically your contact information, demographics, academic history, so all the schools you went to, when you attended them, what kind of coursework you took there, and then supporting information such as the recommendations and experiences. So by recommendations, it'll ask you to list who are you asking letters from. It may also include like contact information, so make sure you just have all the information. And then experiences, they'll ask you to kind of describe them. Frequently, there's a centralized application system. So that's basically a website that multiple programs share to make things easier for them. Not necessarily easier for you, but these are the typical ones for our programs that we focus on. Fees. So schools and centralized application systems may both charge fees. So Cal State Apply, $55 per school. SOFIS, that's a public health one. It's $135 for the first school and then $50 every additional school. So you can see it kind of like adds up over time. I won't go through all of this, but you can kind of get how it goes. It gets expensive, right? Yeah, we can, I'm not totally sure if it's in our budget for the new grant, but in the past we have reimbursed students just for the application. So we'll look at it. So that was basically like all the how. I'll quickly go through the resources and then we'll wrap up. So how can you get more information? Because I know this was a lot, but this is not all, right? You can go deeper into it once you actually start to apply. Allied Health Academy, so workshops, actually on our website, we do have these recorded already, asking for a letter of recommendation. How do you do an informational interview? I think I briefly went over it earlier, that you should be talking to faculty and students of the program that you're interested in. That would be conducting an informational interview with them. Funding grad school, and writing a statement of purpose. So generally for the folks that we typically write a letter for, we'll do a statement of purpose workshop with you, with your draft, have you review it with other people, and then I'll provide you with specific templates. So John has made available on our website as well as Titanium these two documents to help you. The pre-grad school application, it basically mimics what a grad school application is. So you'll have a spot to put what your GPA was, your GRE, like describing your different experiences, who are you going to ask for a letter of recommendation, right? Kind of so you can guide yourself as you are preparing. And then a grad school application planner, this is a spreadsheet based off of what I used to apply recently, basically keeping yourself organized. Okay, what are my deadlines? What tasks do I have to do? When I fill out the online application, like what am I going to write about? So that's there. Career Center, so Liz Bobadilla, she's the contact for our college. They have online resources, career guide, resume, webinar. Again, I mentioned, it's not that great, but if you need something really quick, it's better than nothing. The statement of purpose, they actually have a webinar on that, and they have additional resources for grad school. In-person resources, they actually do workshops on how to write your resume, GRE strategies. They have the Health Professions Exposed series. Has anyone ever attended that? No, perfect, okay. So this semester, they have a series of workshops specifically on health professions. So I strongly encourage you to go do that. It's a variety of them, but the series is called Health Professions Exposed. Oh, awesome. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So the Health Professions Exposed stuff, in the fall, they'll have the Grad School Expo, so make sure you are checking that out. They can review your statement of purpose, and they also do really quick resume review stuff. Okay. Health Professions Advising Office, we went through that. Student wellness. Why is this in here? We do want you to emphasize your well-being as you are going through this. It will be stressful. Maybe you'll get sick. Know what resources are available for you. So Titan Well, they do like health education workshops, apps for counseling and stress management, disabled student services for students with disabilities, and health services, general like health checkups and more. You, ultimately, so we started with who you are, and ultimately we end with you. You are your best resource. You know yourself. You know your strengths, your challenges, your passions. You are the one who's going to get you into grad school, right? We're providing you with these different resources and opportunities, but you are the one who's going to get through the whole thing. So trust your inner guidance, right? Listen to yourself. If yourself is saying, I think I need to wait one more year, listen to that. If it's saying, I don't know if social work is right for me, maybe I should be looking to public health or something like that. Sometimes that happens, right? If it doesn't feel right, like listen to yourself. But ultimately you are your biggest resource. So thank you for paying attention. I know that was a lot. But yeah, I don't think we have a